You can use the puppet warp command to transform a group of pixels in a very amazing photorealistic way, in the sense that it looks like someone might have been smiling when they weren't, or their eyes are open more when they perhaps weren't as much. And it can even be as dramatic as tilting a head. So we're going to explore the puppet warp tool. Here we go. So this woman is on this amazing trip, right? And it would be great if she were smiling. So we're going to change that by just changing the curving of the lips using the puppet warp command. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a copy of the mouth. And I can actually overdo it a little bit. I'm just going to get my selection here, my lasso tool, and make a copy. And think about all the muscles that you might use when you're smiling. But that's okay. We got a little extra there. And I'm going to make sure I'm on the right layer where those pixels live, and just do a Control J to duplicate those to a new layer. Now, the layer that I was on already had some effects on it. I don't really want those effects. So I'm going to remove the effects by just taking the FX symbol right here and drag it down. And it gets rid of those effects, or those layer styles, you might call them that. And now I've got my symbol, and you can see there's the mouth. Okay. And we're going to use that to create a puppet warp. So make sure the layer is active. And in my edit menu, I can go into puppet warp. And I'm going to turn on the mesh so that I can see all those different points that I can use. In fact, I think I'm going to actually change that to more points. So I have even more options, just gives me a little bit more flexibility. And one neat thing about this new version of CS6 is the puppet warp's a lot more streamlined and fluid than it was in previous versions, because it's just more powerful in the Photoshop, and the real-time rendering is a lot more useful. Well, now I can see kind of the basic mesh. I'm going to go ahead and turn that off. And you see I have this little push pin symbol here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. And the push pin has allowed me to make some anchor points. The anchor points are, in some respects, showing me what I want to not move, and also showing me what I want to move. So I'm just going to anchor it where I want to have some changes. And you can kind of decide on the fly, because there's not really a rule as to how many anchors you should have, or how few, or what have you. But you can see that one of the anchors here is selected. It has that white dot in it. And if I click on different anchor points, they become selected. So there we go. I could actually use the Shift key. With the Shift key, I could select, got to make sure I position it there. I can select multiple anchor points. And that would be handy if I wanted to move a whole bunch at the same time. But I'm just going to do one at a time because of the way the angle of her mouth is. I'm going to go ahead and just use my nudge keys, my arrow keys, and give Photoshop a chance to adjust it, because sometimes it takes a little bit of time. And I'm just using my arrow keys to pull that out. And I'll go back and select this other one and move it up a little bit. Pull it out, move it up. I could even come here and move that up just a little bit. If I wanted to undo, use my backward steps, and I could actually select both of these, hold down the Shift, and pull, and even this one as well, and kind of move them all up together. And you can see how all this information is moving. All right, looks good. I'm going to go ahead and zoom back out. And once I change my tool, it says you want to apply the puppet warp commands. And you might notice a little bit, let's just actually choose here, zoom in. You might notice a little bit of some change in color. Let's see what happens when we go to the Move tool. We'll click on Apply. And it's making all those changes in there. Looks pretty good. I can now go in, and because this is actually still just a separate layer, I can either use my erase tool, or I could make a mask. I'll use my eraser tool here and get a real soft eraser. Make sure it's real soft, so the edge, and just kind of erase some of those pixels so they blend in better. Looks good. Making sure I'm on the right layer. So here's what we have, her smiling, and if we look at the before, it wasn't that she was sad, it's just that she seems a lot happier now. Now we can also use this feature on eyes, and sometimes when you take a picture of the eye, the flash gets you and it just gets a little, your eyes might squint a little bit. Now we can't do this with eyes that are completely closed, but if we have an eye that is open and we want to open it more, the puppet warp becomes a great tool for that. So again, I'm going to make a rough selection, and I want to include not just the eye but the eyebrow, because that's part of your smile. Make sure I'm on the right layer and duplicate that information. And then we're going to go ahead and edit menu, puppet warp. It's making sure we have more points. The mesh is still on, but we'll go ahead and hide that mesh for now. Zoom in a little bit. And we'll just add some points, and you can decide where you want to put them. Like I said, there's not necessarily a rule that says you have to put this many points in there. But here we go. And I'm going to actually put a couple on the eyebrow as well. And I want to move up this part and kind of keep everything else anchored. So then as I use my up arrow, you can see how it's pulling up that eye just a little bit so that it becomes even. I could even change the eyebrow just a little bit as necessary. Okay. Go ahead and change the tool, apply it. And here was the before and the after. Real subtle change, but it's this kind of thing that you can use to make a difference in some of those images. And use the puppet warp actually is a lot faster some of the other ways that we traditionally use to change faces or change a group of pixels. Now it's time for a pop quiz. In which menu will you find the puppet warp command? A, edit, B, layers, C, filter, D, window. The answer is A, edit.